start? Hi everyone, welcome back to Into It. This is the podcast with me, your host Jasmine Dine, talking about all sorts of stuff I'm into right now. It's generally interesting shit about interesting shit. So look forward to it. Get into it. No, I don't know. Let me see. What have I got written down here? What's my plan? So welcome back to my friends, my clever little cuties. I want to know what's the best thing that's happened to you this week. I hope it's something juicy. Maybe it's this podcast. Who knows? That's so depressing. I really hope it's not this podcast. I hope you've got loads of good things going on in your life. Now, I know you're going to be totally desperate to find out what this episode is going to be about because I am so ambiguous with my cute little titles and descriptions, so I'll tell you. Now, we have all the senses. We've got smelling, we've got hearing, we've got seeing, we've got tasting, and we've got touching. And some people suggest we have more than five senses, obviously, sixth sense. And we're looking at you, Bruce Willis. And I think we'll probably talk about all that stuff soon on another day. But for today, I want to talk about the magic of sound. Ooh. Yeah, see, little sound effect. See what I did there. Now, we all know that music can affect how you feel. I remember crying to, you know, quite a lot of songs in my life, but especially, do you know that song, Mad World? Here around me are familiar faces. And it's like, the dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Like, are you okay? I was like 10. Um, no, I wasn't okay, but everything's fine, so don't worry about me. But like actually since then I cry to that song every time I hear it, and I know everyone has that with certain songs, or at least like strong emotions. I might not be crying, but like strong emotions with certain songs. But I also have that with that Baz Luhrmann song, Wear Sunscreen. Wear sunscreen. If I could offer you only one piece of advice. Anyway, yeah, that's a that's an absolute banger, great song. But I also remember the like euphoric feeling. Now I'm not like particularly into this band now, but when I was like 16 and I was at Reading Festival, it was 2010, um, there was Mumford and Sons playing, and like I was kind of like I can't remember if I was on my own or I was kind of like not really with my friends in that particular part of the 10. And like this random person came in and like put me on their shoulders. I was just like having like such like a euphoric time. Do you know, just like I wasn't on any drugs or anything, but I was having a really good time. And I just felt like this. And when I think about it, my heart kind of has that like I don't know what the word is, but like when your heart kind of like expands in your chest, not physically, I hope, but like the sensation. But obviously, anyway, my point is music can have a really big effect on how you feel. But I'm not always just going to be talking about music today, but it's a common thing that we can all think, yeah, music does affect how I feel. Do you know that bit? It's quite impactful. I love Eminem songs. Like, if I'm feeling annoyed, a good way for me to process my anger is to like listen to Eminem and like sing to it. Um, but do you know that bit was like, "Fuck you, Debbie." I feel like that. You feel like, yeah, fucking Debbie, fucking dickhead. I don't know who Debbie is, but it just, it empowers you. But yeah, I feel like you can just generally be motivated by songs. Um, and like sometimes, do you know, like when you're listening to the radio on a Sunday, like Radio One, oh my God, we got a radio not that long ago. It was like maybe a couple of years ago now, to be fair, but um, we use it quite a lot because we're both rubbish at bringing our phone into the kitchen when we're gonna like cook and stuff. It's easier to just like flick the radio on just dead quick. And it's quite cute. It's like this like rose gold one that we got from like B&M, but it is quite cute. But on a Sunday, Radio One, oh my God, it's so depressing. It's like I know it's supposed to be like come down music, people are in a hangover, but don't make people feel worse. You're just adding to the pain. Oh my God, it's terrible. Anyway, like not that they don't play some good music on a Sunday, and obviously there is like the top 40 and stuff, but it's just at the particular time when we happen to have the radio on, it's all like like just sad music. Um, but do you know, I found out that there are like loads of frequencies that even the humans with the highest capacity for hearing like can't actually hear. Do you know those horrible alarms that they used to have in like sweet shops and stuff? They did have one in Tame where I used to live. They would like have these horrible alarms that like deter teenagers that play a frequency that only like young people can hear. Proper horrible that they do that. But yeah, humans can generally pick up on sound frequencies that are between 20 and 20,000 hertz, which is the way that sound is measured. And it's a unit of frequency, which is basically based on the change in state or cycle in a sound wave, or an alternating current or other cyclical waveform. and then it's of 1 cycle per second. So sound is all about vibration and frequencies. Oh, I've just hit the microphone. Hope that's not annoying. Um, yeah, like if you ask any music producer, like maybe Findan, no, or any physicist like me, no, um, sound in the end basically comes down to frequency. And actually, they'll manipulate frequencies with equalizers or auto tune or loads of other things, and then they'll change them around in the same way that you tune into frequency after frequency on like your walkie-talkie. If you've got one of those, shout out because that's so cool. Or a radio. I feel like I'd much prefer to have a walkie-talkie than a phone, but everyone I know lives far away, so it's actually just not going to work. But yeah, it's not just sound though. Like literally, if we look at everything in our universe with a strong, strong microscope, we can see that all things in our universe are constantly in motion. They're like vibrating. So even objects that appear to be stationary are in fact vibrating. They're oscillating, resonating at various different frequencies. And research proves to us that thoughts and emotions also produce varying frequencies. And as you probably already know, the frequencies of our brainwaves can be measured on EEG, like machines, or like tests, EEG things. And then our body molecules are vibrating constantly and creating electromagnetic energy waves. Sounds like, whoa, what's that? But this is just facts. And then resonance is a type of motion which is characterized by like oscillation between two states, so going back and forth between two states. And ultimately, all matter, like all stuff, like us, things, everything, matter, is just vibrations of various underlying fields. So everything is like vibrating underneath. So it's all vibrations. So the hippies had it right, okay? So yeah. I don't know why I'm acting as if I'm not a hippie, but no, I'm not. But I don't know what hippie is, but yeah. I mean, I do know what hippie is, but I feel like it's a derogatory term in a lot of situations, and I don't think it should be. But I don't want you guys to think, don't listen to her because she's such a hippie. But you know what? Maybe I'm just trying to find my own, like, my own people anyway. So fuck you. If you're anti-hippies, just fuck off. It depends what your definition of a hippie is. I don't know. Does it depend? I don't know. If you're anti anyone, you probably don't belong here anyway. So see ya. I mean, unless it's the Tories. No, why is it okay to hate on one group? I mean, it definitely is okay to hate on the Tories, but it's definitely okay to hate on the Tories, by the way. I mean, not that I'm the fucking moral practitioner. I don't know. Do you know you just like making a podcast and just sitting here talking to yourself and trying to think like, am I going to use this? Because I am just chatting absolute macca right now. But you know what? You guys will get to know me, and that'll be enough. Anyway, everything is energy. Everything in existence is part of this interconnected web of electromagnetic vibrational frequencies. Now, that sounds like I just said, like a bit woo woo, but it really isn't. That is just like ask a physicist, put it on Google it. That is just facts. There's no like, is there, isn't there? There's no like, some people saying no, no, there ain't, like that is just the facts. And on a microscopic level, we're made up of vibrating atoms that emit energy. Now, this energy field has its own vibrational frequency influenced by our thoughts, moods, attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions. And obviously, sound is a frequency, but it can also influence your thoughts, moods, attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions. Um, and yeah, like, and so there's this thing that it basically says here: an interesting phenomenon occurs when different vibrating things slash processes come into proximity. They'll often start after a little time to vibrate together at the same frequency. They sync up, sometimes in ways that can seem mysterious. This is described today as the phenomenon of spontaneous self-organization, which is exactly what I go through every day when I'm preparing for work. um, Essentially, we're going to talk more about this particular subject later, but there's this really cool TED talk that you should watch if you're interested in this subject and it's towards like emotions. There's this TED talk called "You Are Contagious," and it's like about your emotions, um, which again are resonating at different frequencies and they sync up too. So it basically means that you can catch feelings from other people and stuff. And I don't mean catch feelings like when you start to fancy someone, but like catch feelings like your friend's always in a bad mood, so now you're in a bad mood. And I think I actually talked about this concept a bit in one of my earlier episodes. But yeah, we'll get back to that at some point. So, hello, hun, what's this got to do with sound? I hear you ask. Everything, babe. So, like our whole natural universe, everything in nature, everything in nature. Center points on the frequency of um, which I think is like 432 hertz, um, which is why people have basically been chanting that for at least centuries to sync up. Oh my God, I keep hitting the thing. To sync up to that aligned natural frequency, basically. Obviously, we're always getting other frequencies syncing up with us, but the natural frequency, so of everything in the natural world, all plants, all trees, all everything, the frequency of those things is always at that 432 hertz, whatever it is. Maybe it's not that, maybe it isn't that. What is it? Might be something else. I'm Googling it. Yeah, when chanted correctly. Uh, vibrates at the frequency of 432 hertz. By the way, I'm not saying I just chanted that correctly because I actually don't know, but essentially, yeah, people have been doing that for many, 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 many years. So if you've ever watched something and people are putting their finger and thumb together and sitting in a meditation posture and making that chant, then now you know why. If you didn't already know why, which you probably did already know why, because everyone here is so smart and beautiful. What the fuck? Just close my notes. This is going to be fun to listen to. I feel like it's one of those things, though. Is it one of those things where it's okay? Mm, probably not. This is probably pretty boring. Don't switch me off. Hey, I'm watching you. I'm not watching you. That'd be so creepy. Now, where was I? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, so basically, they've been chanting that for at least centuries to sync up to the aligned frequency within the natural world, unaltered by the unnatural elements of the world. And there's a lot of this ancient sound stuff, architecture and amphitheaters, but also like acoustic things and pyramids. Like, so in very, very ancient cultures, it's been found that there was advanced acoustic elements to ancient architecture. So they had really sorted out making sound sick in like big venues and stuff. But in like ancient Greece, do you know what I mean? Like a long time ago, and in the pyramids. And what's cool about this whole acoustic stuff is especially about how a lot of people think that the pyramids, which were obviously built in a time where there was no like industry to bring things that weighed tons and tons and tons. Even if you had thousands of people carrying it, it would be too heavy. And how would you all get a hand on? Do you know what I mean? But they'd load all these big ones to build all the ancient structures, and a lot of people basically say that the actual way, besides ancient aliens who basically, you know, could be the thing. Don't know. I keep making that noise. It's so weird. But yeah, what am I fucking trying to say? I'm actually just going on with myself. Why are you making a podcast? I don't know. I just like talking. No, I don't. Just chill, Jasmine. Yeah. The ancients used potentially acoustic levitations to move stones, and I'll tell you about this. I will tell you about it. Let me look for the research. Give me a break. So the reason that a lot of people basically think that the ancient Egyptians was able to use acoustic levitation to build the pyramids, which I know sounds like okay, hun, but wait till you hear the actual facts about what scientists have been able to do in the present day. It's not quite as exciting, but it's still impressive and could show that the technology did work if you had more knowledge about the technology. So in 10th century AD, this guy Abul Hassan Ali al-Masudi, who was an Arab historian, wrote about ancient Egypt and basically the methods that he alleges they used to make the massive stones move around. Um, yeah, so he basically said that like a little thing was put underneath the stones, and then a metal rod was stuck against the stone to initiate the levitation process. And then, according to this guide, the stone would then be guided along a fenced path with metal poles placed on each side. Some people believe obviously these are like tons and tons and tons, like way too heavy for people to move. Some people believe these poles could have been used to create high frequency sound vibrations, which would have been responsible for creating the levitation effects. Now, outside of this written testimony, which is obviously open to interpretation, there's no direct evidence to suggest that pyramids were constructed by acoustic levitation, but there's no direct evidence for any ways that they've sorted out that people don't know how it was happening. It's a great mystery of our time. My favorite. But the Great Pyramid of Giza does possess some extraordinary acoustic properties, and it demonstrates the capacity to dramatically amplify sounds generated at certain frequencies. So the Egyptians who built the pyramids on the Giza Plateau clearly knew a lot about sound and knew how it would be used to produce like powerful effects, possibly including levitation. So the cool thing is there's been another creation and other things that have been credited to sonic or acoustic levitation. One called the Coral Castle, which is located in southeastern Florida, which is near Miami, basically. And the Coral Castle is a sprawling stone city built by Latvian American immigrant Edward Skillnan, between the years of 1923 and 1951, so a lot more recently. And basically, the complex was constructed from nearly 1,000 tons of rock, which the guy basically somehow cut, shaped, lifted, and maneuvered into place all by himself. I'm going to put a picture of this in the links thing because it is insane that this person has done it by himself. Now, the guy basically refused to allow visitors or observers on site where he was working, so there was no eyewitness accounts detailing his construction methods. But there were also no reports of mysterious sounds coming from the vicinity of the Coral Castle during the construction phase, but sonic levitation generally relies on the use of sound frequencies that are inaudible to humans. So it doesn't matter that you didn't hear anything. That's the most impressive thing. Like, anyway, in the things that he wrote about and the conversations that he had, he never specifically identified sound as the key factor in his work, but it is known that he had an interest in radio and possessed a range of radio equipment which he used for unknown purposes. And it basically, he said to one person that he knew how to tune into the music of the stars, which was a reference that could obviously have either literal or metaphorical connotations. Um, but essentially, what he himself said in his writing was, I have discovered the secrets of the pyramids and have found out how the Egyptians and the ancients builders in Peru, Yucatan, and Asia, with only primitive tools, raised and set in place blocks of stone weighing many tons. There is an implication here that somehow these ancient masters have developed a method for overcoming the force of gravity, which we already bloody know. Like, it's insane. But how he would have figured this out is unknown. There's been quite a few situations in Tibet where people have claimed that they've seen sonic levitation happen um, on like singular stones and stuff as well. So it's basically happened quite a lot all around the world. And like sonic drilling is actually quite a common thing. Essentially, what they do is kind of like push the sound in. Right, ignore the bit that I said about pushing the sound in, but basically, sonic drilling technology was developed by NASA quite a few years ago now as a means to mine materials from rocks and other hard materials encountered on space missions. So it's obviously boosted interest in the capacity of sound to generate force, which it can do, and then including the power necessary to levitate physical objects. Like if you think of it like like a like a thing that blows air, like a leaf blower, and then balancing like a ball on top and letting it like blow in the air, but you keep it in the air. It's kind of like that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like the power of the sound is what's pushing it up. But it's actually happened. So I hope you haven't got too tuned out of it by now. When you're like, I don't think so. But experiments in sound are like common right now, and in two experiments, scientists have successfully levitated lightweight polystyrene balls, obviously not the same as thousands of tons of rock kind of thing, but they've levitated lightweight polystyrene balls greater in size than the wavelengths used to elevate them, which is the impressive thing, which represents an important step, moving forward basically on the force of concentrated sound. And in one of these experiments carried out by a joint team of researchers in the UK and in Brazil, in 2016 this was, they lifted a 50 millimeter polystyrene ball several centimeters off the ground where it remained suspended for as long as the sound waves were generated. Um, and then just a year later, another group of researchers in the Uni of Bristol successfully levitated a polystyrene ball 2 centimeters in diameter, which is obviously a bit more, I think. Um, so yeah, it's like obviously it might seem a bit redundant because they're small balls, but the researchers did use two entirely different methods for achieving this feat. So there's actually like multiple ways they can do it, and also multiple, um, you know, I feel like the power of it can just get better and better with more research. But yeah, there'll be more information about how both the different researchers did it in the link in the description, just so you can have a look at more of the further details. But they essentially just prove that levitation through the manipulation of sound waves is possible, and that more than one way exists to get the job done. So who knows, future experimentation may uncover even more methods for using sound to overcome the force of gravity, and maybe some of them might be more potent than the techniques developed so far. So we'll just see. Fingers crossed.
Cross your fingers, cross your toes. This is the big time.
Right. So the ancient Egyptians didn't just make these mad things potentially with acoustic levitation, but they had also built into all of their architecture these sound chambers that have these amazing different things to do with like making vowel sounds and then them having the resonance and for like ritual, um, you know, chanting or for also healing basically is what the claims are. Um, Obviously it is one of our mysteries how they were built. It's one of their mysteries why we don't actually have the facts, but you can look at what's there and think, well, why the hell have they done this? And in a lot of the research that's been done about ancient Egypt, it's quite clear that it's a big deal, you know? It says here that every chamber within the pyramid has a specific harmonic replicating the harmonics of the cavity of the human body, which is pretty fucking insane. Sound healing techniques were then used to restore the patient's body to the correct harmonics. And that was something to do with the pyramid code, I think. They basically used the harmonic structures along the what was called the band of peace to using the sound of running water going through the underground tunnel to heal illnesses using the different sound things. Like, do you know when you have like you know that in Miss Congeniality where Sandra Bullock does that talent where there's like the different glasses of water and then she goes around the edges of them and makes like different noises? It's kind of like that, I think. The bent pyramid basically has two different chambers that produce two distinct sound frequencies, and these frequencies are in turn amplified within the pyramid walls to create huge fields of harmonic resonance that restore balance within a human body, which is pretty fucking impressive, isn't it? And that's the bent pyramid in Sneferu in Dashur. And apparently the pyramid of Sneferu is literally comes down to the words like sen means double and nefer means harmony. So the bent pyramid has two different chambers, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, some people might think that restoring balance within our body using sound might be unrealistic, but experts have basically shown that it's not far-fetched at all. Like I've just seen here that there's a scientist called Itzhak Bentov, who writes in his book Stalking the Wild Pendulum that an illness is nothing but an out of tune behavior of one or the other organs in the body. And he basically explains that when a cell is stressed or diseased, its frequency changes and it starts vibrating discordantly with everything else. And so he hypothesizes that when a strong harmonizing rhythm is applied, the malfunctioning cell might just start beating in tune again. Obviously, like we were talking earlier about how everything syncs up together when things vibrate near each other. But how did they know about the mysteries of sound healing, and why did they compose these vowel chants to build monuments to manipulate sound energy for therapeutic purposes? We might not ever know for sure, but the possibility of them being well versed in sound healing only encourages us to look at our ancient wisdom in a new light and to study it diligently. And obviously, people have been saying for a little while now, like ancient cultures might not have been as thick as what we thought. Like actually, they might have been very, very intelligent, more intelligent than we are. So it's interesting to see what could happen. Also, this other integrative oncologist, which is a cancer doctor called Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, said, if we accept that sound is vibration and we know that vibration touches every part of our physical being, then we understand that sound is heard not only through our ears, but through every cell in our bodies, which is pretty fucking powerful, isn't it? Sound energy is intricately connected with the human consciousness and the innate spiritual side of man, but also just all sides of man. Do you know what I mean? By its very nature, sound is at the core of our lives. It influences the mind and the emotions. It's known to alter the life force of a person, and it's got an ability to heal. Like people are, using it. Doctors, hospitals, popular hospitals, big hospitals around the world, at least in the US, UK, and in Europe in general. Integrated music therapy is being added to alleviate physical pain and enhance mental well-being into hospital programs. So it's important, basically. Yeah, there's a woman. Her name is Barbara Marcinak, and she has a book called Earth: Palladian Keys to the Living Library. And she's got a quote here that says, "The ancients understood that a simple sound could reorganize the body structure. Sounds that are harmonious activate the body and create healing." And yeah, she basically goes on that she talk about how the ancestors composed these harmonious chants and hymns to manipulate the intensity of the sound vibrations and their healing capacities within the different architecture that they did it in. So it's really, really interesting, and it does open up opportunities and channels of thought um, around, well, what the hell can we do with all this noise? Yeah. Also, just to get a little bit spiritual for a minute, still on the subject of ancient Egypt. Sorry that there's a bit all over the shop, but I'm literally one of those people that does an exam, or when I used to do exams, and would like write something and then put an arrow, and then write something else and put an arrow, and I know it's annoying, soz. That's who I am. So anyway, um, essentially, it's also been long known that ultrasound effects can be found in the pyramids of Giza, and essentially they relied on the discovery of a dead end in the rock inside the pyramid room as a tube of acoustic resonance, and that generated ultrasonic waves at the base frequency within 5 hertz, sorry. And it's been long known that ultrasound affects the human brain in several different ways, which can stimulate feelings of nausea, anxiety, paranoia, or and for the most sensitive individuals, apparently can lead to a sense of separation from the physical world, accompanied by an out of this world sense, a high. You basically feel like you're high. And scientists have confirmed that ultrasound can obviously produce a changing state of consciousness, leading to an unrealistic visual experiences, hallucinating, and psychological visions. So, if this is true, were the builders of like the pyramid in ancient Egypt aware of some of the very expressive forms of sound technology and the effect of ultrasound on the human body systems? Like, what the hell? Is this why they've purposely made this like pharaonic chamber deliberately designed to generate ultrasound? Like, are they trying to connect spiritually? Is it like a drug taking situation? Like, what was the reason? Is it just for healing? Is it more to like send someone crazy? It could have been used as a weapon. Like, it could have been used for loads of things. It's just really interesting to me. I was also, I love to read like studies and research articles. Like I sometimes literally pay to read just somebody's like writing. By the way, the gatekeeping that goes on in the scientific community by making everything so expensive that you have to like pay so much to read different work and stuff like that. It seems a bit crazy to me when we could develop the world so much sooner if everyone had access to as much knowledge. Like if you try and read studies online, a lot of the time you'll get to read like the first, I don't know, like 250 words and then that's it. And it's so annoying. So anyway, I was reading this study the other day by Oksana Dabaskanavia, which might not have been pronounced right, but hopefully that is. And it was called The Musical Leitmotifs of the Academic Works of um, E.S. Novik, a reflection of the musical traditions of the Siberian peoples in the work of the researcher. And basically, the article was talking about some articles that were done in the 80s and 90s, which were talking about the themes of musical culture and folklore of the indigenous peoples of Siberia. And in the article, they were basically talking, touching upon the significant role of singing in the narrative. Singing in different genres is a sign of sacred message and um, interpersonal communication. Essentially, they're talking about the important role of sound and voice for performing the sacred practices. So, essentially, like musical talent, different musical things, storytelling, everything has been around for so many years from lots of different cultures all around the world. So, obviously, probably we all know that, and it's not new information, but I just find it interesting reading about different cultures, especially that you just don't know about. Not you, but me. Like I don't really know what's going on in Siberia, but it's interesting, isn't it? Um, oh yeah. So I'm also reading this book at the moment. It's called Why Woo Woo Works, and it's by David R. Hamilton, PhD. And it's a really good book. It's like basically the scientific backing of a lot of things that might be considered woo woo, and there's just a bit about nature healing in here, but it goes on to talk about how sound in general to do with nature can be useful, or just generally how sound can be useful. So let me tell you what it says here. Yeah, so it can be basically hugely therapeutic. So obviously mechanical ventilation's proper common and it's life-saving, but it can be really distressing for the recipient because it's so loud and it can cause severe anxiety, which in turn can cause further health issues, which is a health issue anyway, but it can cause even more physical health issues as well. And essentially, in a teaching hospital in the Iranian capital, Tehran, 60 patients receiving mechanical ventilation in an ICU were randomized to receive either standard care or standard care with the addition of listening to nature-based sounds through headphones for 90 minutes. And they could choose between the sounds of birds, a forest, a waterfall, streams, or a soothing rainfall. And it was found that the nature sounds had a considerable effect. While listening to these sounds and for about 30 minutes afterwards, the patient's anxiety levels dropped, not just subjectively but measured different things along with agitation levels and blood pressure. So, you know, obviously for many, many eons, we've been living in grasslands amid bird song, with running water to the sound of crickets, the call of wildlife, and trees swaying in the breeze, conditioned our human nervous system to relax when we hear nature's voice. So if you just want to take a little calm down, that can be a good thing to do. Yeah, when we hear nature's call, tension and stress reduce and calm takes their place. But what I thought was also interesting was a double-blind randomized control of or trial of 57 mothers undergoing, I suppose they are undergoing because it's cesarean section related, undergoing cesarean sections of C-section, conducted at Yarum, University of Medical Sciences in Iran, examined the effects of nature-based sounds on the severity of their pain. They were randomly assigned to three groups. The first group listened to nature-based sounds through headphones. The second group had headphones with no sound, and the third group received neither sounds nor headphones. Good, third group. Pain levels were significantly lower in the group who had listened to the nature-based sound OVs. Yeah, and then in other research, psychologists at Stockholm University in Sweden studied the effect of different kinds of sounds on the stress responses of volunteers. Basically, participants performed a stressful mental arithmetic exercise, and the researchers then measured the length of time it took for their nervous system to return to a normal level while they listened to one of four kinds of sounds. A, natural sounds of birds singing and water in fountains at a low volume of 50 decibels. B, traffic noise at 80 decibels. C, low traffic sounds at 50 decibels. Or D, the ambient noise of a ventilation system at 40 decibels to stimulate a typical office environment. Apparently, the participants' nervous systems returned to baseline levels much quicker while they listened to the sounds of nature than with any of the other three kinds of sounds. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but I mean, that's the thing. It's obvious, but do we actually take use of it? Like, when you go past traffic, you feel more stressed, or when there's loads of noise going on, you feel more stressed. So I don't mean like all loads of noise if it's just one noise kind of thing, but if it's like multiple loud noises, it can be quite annoying. Um, sounds of nature don't just sound a little bit relaxing, as like some skeptics might assume. Rather, the sounds themselves produce direct physiological effects because of our evolutionary adaptations to them. So we become like tuning forks that vibrate sweetly to the sounds of nature.
Come on and feel the vibration.
Interesting as well because it says here natural sounds versus relaxing music. It says relaxing music created by musical instruments is processed differently in the brain than natural sounds. A US study by psychologists at Brandeis University at Waltham, Massachusetts, together with psychologists from the universities of Zurich, Switzerland, and Marburg, Germany, which involved 60 female volunteers, compared listening to different sounds before a stressful event. They basically wanted to measure how quickly participants' nervous systems would return to baseline levels depending on the type of acoustic stimulation. So one group listened to relaxing music, and the second group to the sound of swirling water to serve as to serve as a control. A third group didn't listen to any sounds. So they were taking samples and measurements of salivary amylase, which is an enzyme in the saliva that's increased by uh, ANS activity during stress. So that's automatic nervous system activity during stress. These levels return to baseline fastest in the group who had listened to relaxing music, faster than those in the group who listened to nature sounds, which was swirling water. However, the nature sounds group had lower cortisol levels, which is about stress, and their heart rate variability, a measure of automatic nervous system activity, returned to normal much faster than the other two groups. So, interesting. The study suggested that both relaxing music and nature sounds relax us, but they do so via different biological pathways, so they affect different things. The human nervous system is adapted to natural sounds over eons, so we'd expect these to impact more ancient systems in the brain, which they do, and body, such as those that produce stress hormones and regulate heart rate. But relaxing music is a more recent introduction to our nervous system, so we might expect it to impact the brain and body in slightly different ways, albeit still relaxing ways, but relaxing music is designed to be, well, relaxing. So, yeah. But a lot of these things are complementary therapies. I'm not saying to heal yourself just through sound, but if you're already going through stuff, the sounds that you hear can be so impactful. Apparently, a review of 26 randomized controlled trials on the use of relaxing music with coronary heart disease patients showed that the music produced overall reductions in anxiety, heart rate, respiratory rate, blood pressure, and quality of sleep following their surgery. Wow! There was more research that I wanted to tell you guys about. Let me get all my research in. Yeah, so I've seen here research into tuning forks showed that they could be effective at relieving muscle and bone pain. A 2006 study found that singing bowl meditation, which is when it puts it, it's like down, like kind of looks like a pestle and mortar but big, um, can lower blood pressure, improve circulation and braking, relieve aches and pains, and even strengthen the immune system. So listening to singing bowl stuff really can affect your actual physiological body. And a study into vibroacoustic therapy, which is sounds and vibrations applied directly to the body, discovered that practice could be effective for treating chronic pain and speeding recovery from injury. So, I mean, is that not is that not enough answer? Is it a cure-all? Probably not. Is it beneficial? Hell fucking yeah. And there's a form of sound healing to be found in every culture worldwide and throughout history. Something that I got into a few years ago is listening to binaural beats. So you can type that in on YouTube. It's shown to have massively positive effects on your physiological body, but also on your mental well-being. Sometimes listen to it before bed. Sometimes listen to it if I'm reading, so that I feel more relaxed. If I'm about to like get into a more, if you're trying to transition from one state into another, you've been working all day, you feel a bit frantic or you've been a bit stressed and you're just trying to like calm down a bit, sometimes it can be really good to listen to that kind of stuff. So I would highly recommend doing that if you haven't already. And just see what difference it can make for you. Do a science experiment on yourself. It's really just, does this work for me? Like I was saying last week, not everything is one size fits all, and I'm not saying it will definitely work for you, but I'm saying we should be aware of the effect sound can have on our bodies, whether we can hear it or not. Sound is going on all the time, and yeah, there could be a lot that we need to take from it. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, dogs can hear at different frequencies to us. Sometimes that's why they'll be like about something, but like, what is it? I didn't hear anything. You know what I mean? Like, they can really catch all the sound. You can use all this kind of stuff to tune the human biofield. So we were talking about the frequencies before and at the start of the episode, and now we're talking about music and how it can all come together, sound, how it can all come together. And I just think got to tune that human biofield so that the the field around us and within us, which is a legit thing, is at a frequency that is comfortable to the human body and is in harmony. But there is a lot of sounds that I fucking hate. And I am one of those people. I do not like ASMR. There is nothing you could say to me would that I would rather listen to less than ASMR. Like I hate that kind of stuff. Why would you want to sit there and listen to that? It's actually horrible. Now, to be fair, I do have misophonia, so um, I think it's about 10% of people who have a aversion naturally to certain types of sounds. So if you've ever been around me and you start eating like crisps or something and I look like I'm in actual pain, it's because I am and I'm too polite to say. So anyone close to me knows no, no, no. I don't sit in a quiet room and eat. I don't like to sit around people when they're eating. I would rather not be around people when they're eating. The breathing, the eating, the life. Like my body starts to have this horrible reaction, and it's actually like for people who have it you start to feel like strong anxiety, even rage, irritability, like a real struggle in your body. You feel like you're actually in agony inside. Like it feels like, do you know that scene in Juno where she's like waiting in the abortion clinic? She obviously doesn't end up having the abortion, but and she can like all the sound kind of gets like faded out in some ways, and then all the like little things somebody's like um you know clicking their nails on a clipboard, or someone's chewing their nails, or someone's clicking a pen is like that is like an extreme issue basically that you can have. And I just it's funny how someone can have both a positive effect but also like such a strong physiological difficulty. Like I have sensory issues anyway from having PTSD and most likely have an ADHD as well, but I just have sensory issues no matter what it is. Like I have issues around sensory things especially, but I also love certain sensory things. So it's not just sensory issues, it's just sensory sensitivities, I think is what you would call it. And yeah, like it can be really painful. And I think not enough people know that some people have that. Like it's quite a lot of people that have it if it is 10%. Let me Google it. Let me find out. Many people have misophonia. between 6 and 20% of people. And it literally says here that those with more severe forms can find themselves unable to tolerate family, work, public, or social situations. Fucking true. It's basically a disorder of sound processing. Um, so what I want to know from you guys is what's your worst noise and what's your best noise? What's the thing you like the most? Like for me, one of my worst noises besides chewing and all that stuff, but like something that just makes me more cringe rather than like actually feel pain is like the sound of people kissing. And do you know what I want to say as well? I don't even like the sound of myself chewing. And I am, I do try and be fairly conscientious unless I'm like drunk or something. But you know, if I'm sat in a room and I'm about to eat my dinner and I'm alone, I have to put something that makes noise on. I couldn't sit there and just listen to myself chew. I hate it. Like when I'm sitting there thinking about it now, I can feel my heart rate getting quicker. If I was connected to like, an ECG or an EEG or anything, it would be showing, boy, this girl's getting intense.
You're getting intense right now, and I
You're
think
the intent.
But you know, I do think I'm clairaudient, which is the ability to like hear things. I just feel like when I am having my like levels of psychic ability, it always comes through as like I hear it in my head. Like I don't know if that's claircognizance. I always find it difficult to tell the difference. Um, because like you hear your thoughts, but more like when I speak, I don't necessarily hear my thoughts beforehand. I don't really plan what I'm gonna say in the same type of way unless I've written it down and I'm just reading from it. But like when say if it's like I need to know the answer to something and it pops into my head, it's like I hear it in my head, but not as if it's coming from outside my head, more like a thought, but not the same as a thought, if you know what I mean. If you've gone through that, then you might know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you probably think I'm fucking insane, which I am, so don't worry. You're not alone in thinking that. But I've got a lot of cool things to talk about. I mean, kind of, but yeah, sound obviously just comes into extrasensory perception in quite a lot of ways, and um, you know, a lot of even manifestation. It comes down to trying to match the frequency of who you want to be in the future, because time isn't actually legit in the same way as what we sometimes live our life like it is, and you can manifest a lot of things by matching the frequency of who you think you want to be in the timeline that you want to be it, because everything is now. Everything is now. But let me not go confusingly into other things. But yeah, I love music. I love festivals. I love my boyfriend who's a music producer. I love singing. I'm a big singing person. You know, a lot of cool stuff is happening with with sound, with music, and yeah, I want to hear about what you guys have to say about it. I want to know what you're all thinking about on this mystical day. I want to know, if you agree with me about some of this stuff. You guys are on my side. We're all together on this. We're just thinking about all this stuff. We're thinking about what's going on, and I love you. And I'm excited about what's going to be going on with this podcast going forward. I'm interested to hear what you all have to say. I'm interested to be a better version of myself as I'm doing this learning, as I'm doing this talking, as I'm connecting with new people. And yeah, thank you so much if you've made it all the way to the end of this. I'm sorry for the amount of times I've been like, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But I am recording this at 8 p.m. on a Friday after working for a full week on multiple days where I worked overtime. Not that I get paid overtime, so I just worked past the time I finish. And, I'm making the best use of sound that I can this week. Um, since we all know sound is a powerful influencer on our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So we can use it intentionally to benefit both ourselves and probably the world. Love you guys lots, and yeah, thanks so much for listening, and catch you next time. All right, bye.
See you later, folks.